Hey class, you can see our lab to my left. This is the art intro that we're going to be working on today. We're going to download a new art editing app called Piskel. It's specifically a pixel art editor. Then we're going to design an icon for our OpenLab page. So if you're not sure what I mean by that, let's take a look at our OpenLab page. So you can see down here in the authors section where you will soon have your own page. If we look down here, you can see there's a little icon next to here. And that's actually my OpenLab icon. And so the thing that's kind of nice about that is if I go to my profile on the OpenLab, you'll see I have the same icon. I'm going to design something to replace this. And it's nice because it's consistent across all of the stuff that you will do on the OpenLab. You could also use it as your avatar on Discord if you'd like to do that. It'll give us a nice way to be able to recognize each other on the OpenLab and, when we create new posts and things like that. And at the same time, we'll get used to the new art editing interface for Piskel. So once we're done designing that icon or avatar, we're just going to add it to our OpenLab profile page, which is pretty simple. And then we'll, of course, do some documentation, adding the image that we created and explaining what it is that we wanted to add. So there's no real rules about what you can add for your avatar. You just want to make something unique so it's easy to recognize you. So if depending on what kind of games you play or what kind of art you're into, you could make different choices about what kind of avatar would best represent you. And that way it'll be easy for us to recognize your work throughout the semester. So let's get started. The first thing you'll want to do is download Piskel. Piskel is a web app, and I've always used it on the web. Because it's easy, it's cross-platform, and I could send a link to anybody and they would be using the same app. You can click Create Sprite and see how it would work, but they changed their functionality so they no longer let you save your work online. And for that reason, it's going to be a little bit easier to download the app. And the app is cross-platform, so you can download it for Windows or Mac or Linux. And it should work pretty much the same way on any of those platforms. So that way we can all know that we're using the same software. There's a few reasons we're using Piskel for this class. One of them is that it's free and open source. So everyone can download the program, and it's very lightweight. So you don't really need a great or fast computer to be able to use it. Because games often use pixel art editors are often designed to work with games. So there's a lot of built-in functionality that will make it easier for us to export our art and put it into our games later. You might want to make a different style of art. You might not like pixel art. There's nothing wrong with that. You can use other graphics editors like Photoshop or Illustrator if you want to, but you're gonna have to figure out the steps of exporting your art and getting it into the game on your own. I can share some tutorials with you on how you might approach that, but for now, it'll be a lot easier if we're on the same page and we're all using the same style editors. So I would recommend sticking with Piskel for the beginning of the class, and if you really want to move to a different style of art later on, that would be fine. The first thing that you're going to notice about Piskel is that the canvas doesn't include a lot of pixels. The pixels are very large in the preview window, and there's a small window in the top right that shows you how big the art actually is. You can change the size of the art, and you can make the editor as big as you want. You can also change the size of the preview very easily. And you can also change the size when you export. So keep all of those things in mind. The default is 32 pixels by 32 pixels, which is very small. And so we'll have to make adjustments understanding that as we go forward. So let's start by looking at the tools. Okay, so we're going to look at all of the different tools in here. There's a lot of key commands that are very useful. So I'm also going to turn on the key commands. So you'll see stuff down here. So if I do like a tab, going to look like that. If I hit space, it's going to look like that. So that's just so you can see the different key commands as I'm using them. So let's go ahead and make a new frame, delete this one. So the pen tool is the first one that we're obviously going to look at. Up here you see the pen size, so we can make some lines, and then we can make bigger lines, 2 by 2 pixels. We can make 3 by 3 pixels, and we can make 4 by 4 pixels. That's the biggest one. You can also switch the pixel size using the bracket keys. So you can see the bracket keys going back and forth. And then I can use the pen, the P, to select the pen tool. One thing to mention about the pen tool is I have a second color down here, And right now it's transparent. So if I right click, it actually acts as an eraser. So it's like an eraser and a pen at the same time. So that's pretty cool. If I choose a different color down here, maybe it's something green. Now I have green and blue. So I can draw with two colors at once, essentially. I'm using the mouse right now. You can also use the tablet or whatever you have. Now I can add a new frame. So I can hit N to add a new frame. I can also hit Shift N to duplicate a frame if I'm working on an animation or something like that. And now the next tool is the vertical mirror pen. This is really useful if you're trying to draw something symmetrical. So if you want to draw somebody's face, you might draw some eyes and a nose like this, and here's some eyeballs. Okay, you can also, there's a bunch of key commands to be aware of. So if we hover over this, you'll see some modifiers there. So if we hit Command, now we're drawing in both directions. If we hit Shift, it's only vertical. So the next one is the bucket tool. You know, that's just going to fill in a space. If you go in somewhere like here, it's going to kind of try to intelligently fill in different little areas. The next tool is the Paint All Pixels tool. This is actually a really, really useful tool. Let's say we have a drawing, okay, of some grass, and I drew it all black. And I decide later that I actually want my grass to be green. I can take the Paint All Pixels tool and paint that, and it's going to turn all of those guys green. If I hit Shift, it's going to apply to all of my layers up here. So that's actually really useful if you decide to change your color palette for some reason. Like let's say we wanted a slightly darker green. I could make this green darker, use this, and now I've got a darker green. So now I have kind of a different style in the previous drawings. The eraser is pretty obvious. Let's just duplicate the frame, and I'll just do some erasing. You might want to choose a bigger size when you're erasing, but then we have the line tool. Okay, so we can make straight lines. Probably want to make shorter ones. Okay, pretty straightforward. Then we have the rectangle tool. Okay, nothing too special here. We can make a square if we hold Shift. And the circle tool, same idea. Now we have the move tool. We can move stuff back and forth. That can be useful. One thing that's nice is if I hold Option, you can see it actually goes through. Okay, so I can kind of move that around, or if I can go up and down. Be careful using the move tool that you don't lose the art, because it doesn't work like Photoshop where it will keep the pixels there. If I hit Shift, it's going to move all of my frames. So I probably don't want to do that right now, but that could be useful in the future. Shape selection is kind of what it sounds like. You can select different areas. You can also select the outsides. I could copy this selection, go up here and cut. Okay, now I've got the inverse of that. That was kind of cool. I could have just colored it in, but then I have the lasso selection tool. So this will allow me to select a specific area and cut, or I can cut and paste, and then I can move that around. Paste again, paste, paste, paste. The lighten tool, this is actually a really cool one for designing art. So if I'm on like a big block of color, if I hit lighten, see how it slowly gets lighter, okay? And I can also hold Shift to just apply the same amount per pixel. So I just kind of like make some shading. Hopefully that'll be visible. And then I can add another pixel there. Or if I hold Command, it's going to darken. So we'll see that gets a little darker. And same thing if I hit Command and Shift, then we just kind of get the shading. Then we have the dithering tool. This is really nice because it just alternates these colors. If I make this a little bigger, I can just kind of fill in. And then finally the color picker is pretty straightforward. I can just pick different colors. You can see all those colors being added to the palette over here. You can also cycle through colors using the number keys. So I think that's all of the tools over here. So let's look at this side. So up here is your preview. You can actually take that out and it'll show you on a larger scale if you want. You can also, this is 1x, so this is how big it is. It's quite small actually. If we want to see what it would look like a little bit bigger, or at 6x, whatever the size of that window is, that's pretty useful. We can also change the FPS of the animation. I can also add an onion skin, which can be useful if I'm doing animation. I like to use onion skin to, if I'm creating a character, I can draw like a head for a circle, draw a body, and then go to the next frame. And now I can take my pen and kind of draw, where I think this maybe should go. And I don't have to be as accurate. The layers section, we're going to ignore this for now. It gets kind of complicated. Transform tools are useful. I can flip vertically. And then if I hold the Option, it'll flip horizontally. And then as usual, if I do this, it'll apply to all the layers. Then I can rotate. I can clone to all the layers. That might be useful. I can align to center, and I can also crop the sprite. So you're not going to be able to see that unless I get rid of a bunch of this stuff. And then if I hit crop, then it's going to crop. Okay, the palettes will show all of my different colors. You can specifically add colors if you know that you want to create a palette, but it'll also add it as you add to the scene. All right, so our last thing to go over is this panel over here. So there's the settings and everything else. So here in the preferences, the grid is really useful. So if we turn on the grid, you can see what the grid looks like. You can change the color and you can change the size. This is going to be really useful for designing platforms and scenery and stuff like that. But for now, probably don't need this. Resize. Okay, so you can resize. Most likely if you do like 64, it's going to get bigger. Okay, so you might want to make larger art. Also change just one dimension, so I can say 64 like that if I want to. And I can also change in different directions. So if I just want to add some space, I can go like that. I can also resize the canvas content. So if I go like that, now it's bigger, but my drawing is also is proportionate. And then you can also set the default size here. 32 by 32. That's probably fine. I'm not going to change that, but you might want to. So now we're going to save the file. We're going to start by saving a Piskel file, which is sort of like a PSD if you used Photoshop. It saves all of the editing information so we can go back and make edits later. I'm going to name my file OpenLab Avatar and click Save. And in the file dialog, I'm going to go to the desktop and I'm actually going to create a new folder for the class that I'm going to use to save all of my projects and files throughout the semester. So I'll call this MMP 270. And in here, I'm going to add another folder for my art where I'm going to add my original Piskel files. So if I want to go back and edit them later, I can always do that. Later, when we add our art to the game, we're going to export a different type of file. For now, we want to keep all the originals in the art folder. And I may add other folders like game and sound later. Piskel files are a little bit different than other files because the application is based on a website. So if I double click, it's going to open the app, but it's not going to open the file itself. So I can use the folder icon to open files in a few different ways. I can browse local Piskels. That's going to show me things that were saved locally. Those cache files might be useful if I forgot to save something, but most of the time I'm going to just want to go and open a Piskel file. So I'll click on the Piskel button and find the file in my folders. There's a couple other things. I can import art directly, or I can look through backups. So it'll save backups as you're working. So if you lose something as you're working, that might be a good place to look. But most of the time, that .piskel file is what you want to open, so you can go ahead and do some edits. I'm going to go ahead and design an avatar real quick. I'm going to use a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as my avatar just for this project. I've been eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly over the past year and a half, so that would be a good, unique thing to represent me. So once I'm done creating my avatar, it's time to export a PNG file that we can use to actually upload to the OpenLab. So I'm going to go to the export tab, which is the one that looks like the little mountain icon. And then I'm going to click on the PNG tab. So we want to export it to PNG, and we want to use the sprite sheet. We only have one frame, so we don't have to worry about exporting a sprite sheet. If you have more than one frame, you might have an issue with this. We could go over how to fix that. Anyway, we're just going to export our one frame as a sprite sheet, and it's going to actually download the file. So then we can just put it in the art folder for now, since we're not working on a game yet. And if you open that file, you're going to notice that it's very small because the design we made is 32 pixels by 32 pixels, which is on a computer, very small space. So what we can do is scale it up. I'm going to go ahead and scale it up all the way to 512. We could go larger, but I think that's a big enough size for what we're doing. And so I'll just save this as the large version. Since it is pixel art, I'm not worried about it getting distorted or blurry or anything like that because it is just hard to edge pixels. And so that sizes up pretty nicely. And now we can go upload that to the OpenLab. So now that I have my avatar, I can go to my profile and click Change Avatar in the OpenLab. And I'll choose File. I'll go through my desktop and find the file on my computer. Click Open and click Upload Image. Then I can crop the image. In this case, I want to include the entire image. So I'll click Crop. And if that worked, when we go back to the OpenLab and refresh the page, now we can see that my avatar has changed and now I'm a little PB&J. Last thing to do is post it on the OpenLab. So even though it's our avatar, we also want to make a post to document it and to, of course, get credit for the assignment. So choose the category Art Intro, add your title, give us a sentence about what makes your avatar unique, then find your avatar image, probably use the larger one, upload it. So you can preview if you want to take a look. And if you're happy with that, you can go ahead and publish. And you should be all done.